Is Luffy Pirate Jesus? Is he the Messiah of the One Piece world? We all know he doesn't want to be called a hero, but is he their savior? What up everybody, it's your boy Kentario, and I'm back again for another episode of Christ and Comic Books. And today we're going to be talking about One Piece, and what we're looking at is the new name that Luffy has been prescribed, and that of him being the Pirate Jesus. Now, my first time hearing that name for Luffy came from King and Queen Lion on TikTok. He called Luffy Pirate Jesus. I've always already held that perspective, and there was already evidence of that within his character earlier on within this series of One Piece. But after the revelation of what we get from Gear 5, as well as some of the prophecies that have been revealed during the Egghead arc, there's a lot more support for this theory that he is in fact the Pirate Jesus of the One Piece world. For anybody that does not already know, that One Piece is a series about a young boy who wants to become the Pirate King. And to do that, he must find the Gold D. Rogers lost treasure known as the One Piece. And this has set several different pirates and others on the journey to find that exact treasure. Now, this story has thus magnified to a whole nother level where several different events have taken place in which we're discovering the recklessness of the world government, that some pirates can be good, that they're not all evil, and that there are several different types of people, races, and cultures throughout the entirety of the One Piece world. And we're just along for the ride. I don't even think a lot of fans are even concerned for what the One Piece is anymore.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a lie. I'm totally kidding. Everyone's wanting to know what the One Piece is, and they have such high expectations. But let me not get sidetracked. Because of the search for the One Piece, this has thus revealed a legend that has been hidden throughout the series. And this is the legend of the One Piece, but not only that, the legend of Joy Boy. Oh, yeah. So a lot's changed since the recording of this video initially. One of those things being that I got a new camera stand. Not only that, as you can tell, the audio seemed to switch out on that video. It comes back on later, don't worry. But I was planning on readjusting it, but I changed my mind. I'm gonna let it ride. It's gonna fix itself. I'm gonna let it ride instead of re-recording. But hopefully we don't have this trouble in the future. So guys, I kind of hope you like the new positioning for the camera. I hope you like the rest of this video. Let's finish up. Also known as Jaguar Binks, presumably. Now, the thing about the legend of Joy Boy is that Joy Boy is one that had lived over 800 years ago during the time of the Void Century. And he is said to be a giant of Elbaf. He is known as being the one to have originally possessed the gomu no Mi, the gum fruit that Luffy now possesses, which has been revealed to be the hito no Mi fruit, model Nika. This is thus revealing him to be Sun God Nika. Yep. There are several hundreds of different theories that people have for who Joy Boy is, whether or not he was truly good, whether or not the world government was actually bad, and there's a lot that could be expounded on this. But so that I can stick to the topic, I'm gonna make some of my points light. But nonetheless, Joy Boy became one who held a lot of power, who was presumably extremely strong. From a lot of the reactions that we're seeing from several different characters, and what's being pointed out in bits about the history, that Joy Boy was genuinely a good person. He wasn't necessarily evil.
What do you mean by that?
But the world government came together by uniting several different kingdoms across the world to contend against him. Not only in them contending against him was he believed to be defeated, but at the same time they began to hide the truth of the events of what's known as the Void Century.
You knew.
Secrets of the Void Century have now been hidden on what's known as the poneglyphs, or depending on how you pronounce it, the poneglyphs, which are revealing, one, where some of these secret weapons are that a lot have been looking for. The world government's been looking for, other pirates have been looking for these weapons, but not only that, it also reveals the history of what took place during the Void Century, and the government is doing everything that they can to keep those things secret. It also includes the devil fruit of the hito no Mi model Nika. What else that has been associated back to that of Joy Boy, Jaguar Binks, is that he is the savior of these people that have now been suffering in bondage due to the rule of the world government. That he is going to be the one to liberate them when he returns. So several people have held on tight to this prophecy that Joy Boy will return, that Joy Boy will come to set them free, that people will be able to finally experience joy, liberty, and freedom. And this is a prophecy that has been thriving and slowly being revealed throughout the entire series of One Piece. And the question now is, with much evidence due to the devil fruit, is Luffy now the new Joy Boy?
Yep.
He himself has not claimed that title, but he has, one, demonstrated the power, and within his character, he has demonstrated the acts of that of someone that looks to set people free. A couple of things to point out in regards to this of the inspiration for Joy Boy. There's a lot of theories that have been put out there. One of the most prominent theories as of currently is that there is a I guess you could say either a Western African or a Caribbean god known as Joy Boy, who is a spirit of the drums. It's believed that he was brought from West Africa to the Caribbeans, as well as is believed to be a part of the Haitian mythos as well. And though he is not a major and prominent god, this Joy Boy, he is a god of song, dance, and liberty. So during the time when which Joy Boy is active or has shown himself, it is a time for feasting, a time for partying, a time for celebration, which if you look back at the events of Skypiea, you will see that the revelations that were coming forth from that are that Joy Boy is exactly that, someone that shows up for feasts, someone that shows up for parties, always smiling to have a good time, and he brings others into that same type of thing as well. And if you look at the story of One Piece, we see that Luffy has done that in each and every venture that he's went on. He's fought against evil people, he has set people free from their bondage, and at the end of every single venture, there is a party, celebration, food, and they're on their way out the door to the next island. Now, in regards to this being an inspiration coming from either that of West Africa, Caribbean, or the Caribbeans, or even the Haitian mythos, particularly voodoo mythology, this is something that would immediately turn Christians off. But I'm here to say that that shouldn't be an immediate turnoff, because he's not necessarily representing, I guess you could say, that of voodoo practices, as much as he's representing something entirely different. And we're going to point out all of those details. Now, again, if you have concerns with this Haitian god, quote unquote, being a representation of Luffy, and then me attempting to try and tie that back to Jesus, and that almost coming across blasphemous, let me point out that throughout several different mythos throughout history, there are different gods that operate like a messiah or a savior for their people or for the divine realm, whatever the case may be. You have Horus for Egypt. You even have, I'm going to butcher his name, I think it is Marduk, of the Mesopotamian gods, who is one to be said to fight against this dragon at the end of times. So that's already all of these things are already being associated throughout several different mythos in history. And so for Christ to actually be one to fulfill some of these prophecies or these visions, and to actually do a lot of these things that people look to these other gods for, give Christ a lot more prominence and recognition rather than any of these other gods. But that's just my opinion. You don't have to quote me on that. However, with that being said, that this is the inspiration, the last thing I'll say is also with him being modeled Nika, the translation for Nika, I'm not sure if this is in Greek, I'm not sure if this is in the Haitian language, or whether or not this is the Japanese translation for it, but it translates to victory, which is a lot of what people experience. Is they feel a sense of victory in the midst of joy, hence Joy Boy. Whenever Luffy has done what Luffy has done on his adventures, fighting and setting people free, they experience joy. They can finally laugh and smile and enjoy life for once, ever since they've been in their state of bondage. One of the main things that I've been pointing out throughout the entirety of this very video is that throughout the series of One Piece, Luffy has demonstrated himself to be this messianic or savior-like character, even without the introduction of Year 5. But we're going to get into both the before and the after for showing that Luffy is this messianic character. If you look back during the events of Archipelago, when they were in the bar of Shaki, as well as Silver's Rayleigh was there as well, there's a conversation going back and forth between them. One, that Silver's Rayleigh, since he rode with Goldie Roger, knows where the One Piece is. He knows how to find it. And the conversation came up of him revealing where it is so that they could just go straight to it. But Luffy immediately shuts down this conversation because he reveals, though it's been evident with his character since the beginning, that it's not only about just finding the One Piece, it's about the journey to finding the One Piece. And what it means to truly be king of the pirates is to truly be free. And it's not experiencing freedom if he's just having this handed to him at the end of the day versus him enjoying his life to get there, even if he doesn't actually get to meet and see what the One Piece truly is, which is one of the biggest fears of the One Piece fandom, is that no one wants to see Luffy lose his life before he actually gets to see the One Piece, but the possibility yet still looms. Nonetheless, Luffy has expressed this, that his ultimate goal is to truly experience freedom. Now, here's some conflictions with him wanting to experience this freedom. He's a pirate, right? And there's always been a negative connotation associated with piracy. That being said, Luffy and several other characters throughout the journey have shown themselves to do good and to fight for others and to help people on their way in the midst of living a life of a pirate. Now, where this confliction also shows up is, well, Luffy said that he's not a hero. But if you're not a hero, why are you helping and saving people when they're being attacked, when they're being hurt? One of the key notes about Luffy's character is Luffy shows up for his friends, especially when his friends ask for help. We initially seen that with Nami. We saw that with Zoro. He was a person in need. We've seen that again throughout the entirety of the One Piece verse, is that Luffy shows up for his friends. He doesn't just show up whenever there's a problem. He's not going to get involved otherwise. Now, we might see that as a problem, but at the end of the day, we've grown to love that with Luffy. It's conflicting because if there's evil, we need to address evil no matter what. But at the same time, Luffy doesn't do that. And the fandom doesn't complain that Luffy doesn't get involved in every single situation. What I find funny about that, however, is that everyone expects that God ought to get involved and to solve each and every problem, rather than him only showing up for those that claim to love him, but they don't have an issue when Luffy does it. I just wanted to point that out there. But nonetheless, Luffy shows up for those that are his friends, which leans more towards him being a savior rather than simply being someone that is a hero. A hero gets involved in each and every situation, and at the end of the day, as we especially see with characters like Spider-Man, that has affected their ability to just simply live a normal life, have normal relationships, have normal goals outside of their heroism. There are several characters in different comic books that are able to have both, but what's most prominent about heroism is that you show up for each and every person. Now, that doesn't mean that Christ doesn't show up for people whether or not they believe, but where we see Christ most prominent showing up is when he shows up for those that believe in him. I don't want to get overly sidetracked, but I want to make sure that I point that out. That's what leans more towards Luffy being a Messiah-like character. The other thing to point out when it comes to his freedom is that you can't fully experience freedom when there are others that are actually in bondage. That's the other side to what Luffy has shown himself to do each and every time. He doesn't take on each and every person's burdens and pains, but at the same time, he's not going to pursue freedom without ensuring that other people on some level can experience freedom or pursue it for themselves. You can't pursue freedom for yourself if you're locked up, if you're trapped, if you're suffering, and if you can't get out. So Luffy showing up to free people and liberate people sets them on the course to also experience freedom. And this is revealed within the character of Luffy, and it's been that way since the very beginning of the series. Now, where we get our most prominent revelations of him being like a messiah, being the pirate Jesus within One Piece, shows up within the two most recent arcs of One Piece, that being the Wano arc as well as in Egghead. During the Wano arc is when we actually get to see Luffy show up as Joy Boy. He enters into his Gear 5 form, which causes the drums in his heart to beat. Now, with the drums in his heart beating, this stirred up the elephant known as Zunisha, who begins to chant and speak of the return of Joy Boy because he's heard the drums that he hasn't heard for centuries. He hasn't heard that drum beat for years. But now that he hears Luffy's heartbeat, it reminds him of Joy Boy, and he begins to call those the drums of liberation. Not only that, do we have the appearance of what was once Joy Boy now showing up through Luffy. There's a particular conversation that took place between Luffy and Kaido. After Luffy goes Gear 5, he goes ham on Kaido and gives a lot of good hits in, flipping them and spinning them because he's got the Toon Force, and he gives a good old punch to the face. Now, Kaido then follows up with a question to Luffy, and he asks, "Who are you?"
Monkey D. Luffy. お前を超えて海賊王になる男だ!
Now the question may become, why is Kaido asking Luffy who Luffy is when he's been fighting Luffy and Luffy does have that transformation? Now you could assume it's because of how Luffy looks. You could assume it's because Luffy's sitting here bouncing and laughing and this isn't an aspect of Luffy's power that anyone has ever seen before. So sure, Kaido might think, well, I'm fighting somebody else. I'm not fighting Luffy. That being said, Luffy responds the way Luffy always responds when it comes to introducing himself. I'm Monkey D. Luffy, and I'm going to be king of the pirates. And the fight between Kaido and Luffy continued. But I'm gonna double back to this fight between Kaido and Luffy in just a moment. Because in Kaido asking this question, what takes this a step further is what revealed in Egghead by Vegapunk. Now, Vegapunk is inspired by that of Albert Einstein. One thing to point out about Albert Einstein is that it has been speculated that he, in fact, was a Christian before he lost his life. What? Another thing to point out as well, although yes, he is a scientist, is that some of our earliest scientists were in fact Christians who were inspired to even conduct their experiments and studies because they wanted to better know God. And so with Albert Einstein having being a scientist and a Christian, that may speak to a lot of his own research. And we get similar language like that from Vegapunk, where Vegapunk has begun to not only research the poneglyphs to get into that history, which is what getting him in trouble in the current arc anyway, but it also is that he began to study the devil fruits to fully understand how they function. And one of his theories is that this is not just a fruit that gives power, but these fruits are the manifestations of people's desires. And he has tied that to the manifestation of these particular entities into the world, which thus brings out Sun God Nika, which is separate from the fruit itself, him being an actual being. And he even makes a quote of, whether or not you believe in God, this is a very interesting thing to consider, that these entities, these gods, these deities, these creatures actually have existed. So with Kaido seeing Luffy in his Gear 5 form and inquiring who he is, this is also giving us foreshadowing that Sun God Nika is an entirely separate entity from even what we see of Luffy, that another persona may actually exist within Luffy. And that's all because of what Vegapunk has thus said about the devil fruit. Now I want to double back again to that fight with Kaido that Luffy is having is because of what did I just mention about the Mesopotamians? That Marduk is said to going to be fighting against a dragon during the end times. Kaido, though, for some reason this devil fruit is associated to a fish, we know him to be a dragon. And so Luffy, being this promised liberator, this savior of the people, shows up to fight against what? The dragon, to defeat the dragon. And he ends up defeating Kaido at the end of this bout, which is, again, a reflection of that of Jesus Christ. And there's a lot, again, there's so much more evidence that we could speak to say that he is more of this messianic character, but we'll have to wait for more of the series to reveal some of these truths that we already have seen. Now, the question also then becomes for anyone that's watching this video that is not a Christian is, well, how is this associated to Jesus? Well, this is associated to Jesus because Jesus Christ is said to be the savior of the world. He went and died on the cross, resurrected from the dead, so that the entire world would have an opportunity at having salvation with him in the kingdom of heaven. That is exactly what Luffy has done with his entire journey, is he has fought to set people free so that they could have an opportunity to live a life of freedom, to be set free and no longer be in the bondage that they have been in. And Luffy has done that since day one, is fight to set people free. That's exactly what Christ stands for. Now, we might, again, that other association which I mentioned earlier, Luffy shows up to solely fight for his friends. Christ primarily shows up to set people free who has accepted what Christ has done for them on the cross and even resurrecting from the dead and giving their life to believe that that is true, which is I myself, whatever I have done and what several of my followers here on YouTube and on TikTok have done. They've given their life to Christ.
Friends, yep.
You might think that that's selfish. That's not what a good God would do. But one of the things that Christ has said, even to one of those that's believed to be his own, the Pharisees and the high priests who are checking him for sitting down with sinners and eating with prostitutes and eating with tax collectors, is that he said, I came not for those that don't have a need of a physician. He's showing up for the people that have revealed that I have a problem, that I am in bondage, and I need help. I need specifically your help. I don't just need anyone's help. I need your help. That's the thing, even about the crew members of the Straw Hat Pirates. They don't just follow Luffy because they wanted anyone to follow. They follow Luffy because Luffy showed up and revealed himself to be somebody that was different, somebody that was capable, and someone that they could put their trust in, and vice versa, Luffy could put their trust in them. That's the same type of relationship that we have with Christ. Christ is someone that we can put our trust in, and then vice versa, he is someone that has put his trust in us that believe in him. And not only that, we make a difference in the world because that is what he's commanded us to do, similar like that of a captain. The Straw Hats do what Luffy says or what Luffy wants, but Luffy also doesn't restrict his people. Same thing for us Christians. We may be obedient to God and do God's will, but that also doesn't mean that we're restricted. That means that we're set free. Where we see a lot of this freedom also shown in the One Piece series due to what Luffy has done. There was an introduction of something, I'm trying not to be too long, but there was an introduction of something that I thought was absolutely amazing. And that is of the experimental smile fruit. And we've seen where they've been attempting to copy the devil fruit by making replicas of the original form. That's where we have Kaido, though he has the original fruit for his dragon form, that Momonosuke has partaken of that fruit, and that's where he has his dragon-like form because it was made after that of Kaido. But some of the defects that we've seen, particularly within Wano, where it has caused permanently the only emotion that you can express is that of a smile or laughter or something associated with that. But it's a false representation of what the people within Wano have been experiencing, have been living out, and what they're suffering with. Their only response can be that of this fake and unrealistic smile. But where that has been flipped is when Luffy actually defeats Kaido and sets the people free, ironically during the one time a year where the people can actually eat and get to celebrate. This now stirs, because this is the influence that Luffy has, stirred people that actually experience joy, to actually smile, to actually laugh, to actually enjoy each other's company without it being forced upon them with this devil fruit, with this fake fruit. The same thing can be said for the world. The world is constantly looking for things to be a placebo for them, to cause them to have false joy, false hope, false happiness, false success, something that doesn't last long. And at the end of the day, they find themselves longing for something more. But like what Jesus said to the woman at the well, that he can quench your thirst and you will hunger no more. That is what Christ does for each and every person that gives a life to them, that actually gets to taste and see that the Lord is good. They experience that which is undeniably true about him, and that is that he is the true joy boy, that he is the true king, not just king of pirates, but he is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. But if you were to ask me, is Luffy a pirate Jesus? I'm going to say yeah. He's not just some joy boy from some Haitian voodoo mythology. He is actually a representation of Christ and how he has impacted the world more than any other god, more than any other deity, more than any other human being on the planet. But that's just me. Thank you guys for sticking around for this video. If you like this video, you like what has been produced on this channel, please make sure that you hit that like button, as well as make sure that you subscribe to this channel, as we have several more videos like this to come. And thank you guys for joining me, as well as make sure that you share this video with others on other platforms. That way they can have this conversation with me. So whether or not Luffy is in fact a pirate Jesus. Thank you guys, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.